Convinced that mutants pose a threat to humanity, Dr. Bolivar Trask develops the Sentinels, these enormous robotic weapons that can detect a mutant gene and zero in on that person. In the 21st century, the Sentinels have evolved into highly efficient killing machines. With mutants now facing extinction, Wolverine volunteers to go back in time and rally the X-Men of the past to help change a pivotal moment in history and thereby save their future. Today we discuss X-Men Days of Future Past. Qualified morons and microphones. This is the previously recorded podcast. All right, welcome back to Previously Recorded. I'm your host, RP, as always, and this is a very special episode of our Fox Marvel Rewatch universe, whatever, the whole thing. I know by this point, Deadpool and Wolverine has come out, and you're like, and actually, after this episode, I'm like, I don't know why we need to continue doing this anymore anyway. Because this is kind of the penultimate episode in the X-Men franchise. And things are kind of all downhill from here. That being said, I needed to have a special guest on for this one because this is the big one. This is the episode that I've been looking forward to the most. And to welcome back to the show, my wife, Audra, welcome back. You are the biggest X-Men fan I know.
The biggest.
Just kidding. Happy to have you here. There's going to be a nice...
Go ahead and name all the X-Men you like.
Yeah.
Kitty
Wolverine.
Price. Oh. Kitty Price.
I know one. That's one.
Yeah,
X-Man.
X-Man. That's right.
All people know about him.
Yeah.
I thought you just made that up. Hearing the voice, it's these two friends of ours who has been on the Previously Recorded network before, but never actually on Previously Recorded. Welcome to the show for the first time, Rishabh and Bailey. Welcome.
Hello.
So, for context, Rishabh and Bailey have been basically lifelong friends with Audra, and recently been friends with me since we met. And
I have since learned that
it's not
they
recently.
are closer.
It's been like 5 years.
But they are closer to you in every single way possible when it comes to every single interest that we.
You chose to marry a nerd.
But also, Rishabh, as we always said, we married the wrong person because Bailey and RP have very, very similar interests.
Hell yeah.
Everything. So.
But Rishabh and Bailey, I messaged them as soon as it's funny, it's been, I think, like 3 months since this thing started. But before I even started, I said, you two, here's the list of movies, call your shot, because you two are the biggest X-Men fans that I know. So you called your shot for this, and then I misspoke because there is another movie. Well, Logan, you guys will be returning to the show. You guys called that, and that is after that, it's the downfall of the X-Men franchise. But I guess, and then Deadpool 2 comes out after that. So, like, the way that we're doing this, though,
just come
on. The timeline, the multiverse is a construct.
They love this movie.
Is
That's
crazy.
the bottom line.
You gotta pepper in the, like, decent movies, like, that you cover as episodes. Just,
Yeah. So, like, the episodes will be fun. Obviously, the episodes are always fun and good. But,
yeah,
like,
we love every
thank you so much. But, because at this point, we have covered Deadpool 1 and 2. So, in terms of the timeline, really, it's this and Logan, and then it's Dark Phoenix and Apocalypse and Fantastic Four we still have to cover.
Whoop, whoop.
Oh, God.
I can't wait.
But anyway, you two are the biggest X-Men fans that I know, period. Like, even with my friends that work at a comic book store and whatever, you two are just, I think since we've met, I know if I have an X-Men question to come to you guys. So I was like, you need to be on this show. So, welcome. We're happy to have you.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Absolutely.
Very excited.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, you can definitely tell, and we'll get into the later of how you can tell.
You don't even know yet, people. You don't even know.
You don't even know. Possibly
we
the greatest.
We sipping, we drinking, we having a good time.
Possibly the greatest guest the show's ever had.
That's
so,
nice.
The way that I start every episode of this rewatch with new guests is to kind of talk about your history with the X-Men. And so I prefaced it by saying you two are the biggest X-Men fans that I know, so now you got to back it up. So we'll just start first with Rishabh. What was your introduction to the X-Men? Was it the cartoon? Was it the movies, comics?
Yeah, so as a kid, I liked the cartoons, right? So there was the original, and then there's also X-Men Evolution, which, like, in hindsight, isn't as good, but, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't know the difference.
Also, their poster for that show was awesome. I remember that vividly.
Yeah, no, it's like a little high school drama, right?
Yeah. You are the first person to mention X-Men Evolution on this show, too.
Yeah, there's a reason for that. But then more specifically, because, like, for a while, I was a DC person, mostly. I didn't really read a lot of Marvel. But then, and you want to go together for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think like
Because we both got into it around the same time.
Yeah, we have like parallel timelines. But yeah, I think like we were both really heavy into DC for a long time, like since we were like teenagers. And I had like not really gotten into Marvel at all. But then we started hearing about the Krakoa era, the Hickman era comics.
2019 soft reboot,
Yeah.
House of X, Powers of 10 by writer Jonathan Hickman.
Yes.
So that was it Powers of 10? Or is it Powers of X?
So
Disputed.
it's Powers of 10,
But House of X.
House of X.
That's fucking confusing.
Oh, yeah.
They do
and
that all the time in the new era.
There's like a series that's like 10 of Swords, but with like an X. So it's like some people call it X of Swords, some people call it like Cross of Swords.
Okay. I don't know why people complain about the comic universe. Like, it's so easy to follow.
Don't get me started. Don't get me started.
No, but like we picked that up like a year or two after it came out, like
Yeah.
as the trade paperback. And our personality types, we tend to be a little obsessive, so we just dove in real hard. So
That's something I can appreciate.
Yeah, fairly recent converts, but like, yeah,
hardcore.
yeah.
Yeah, so kind of like right at Audra and I met and started dating in 2019. So kind of around
Pretty
then
much
is
around
when
that
you
time.
guys kind of hit the ground running with the X-Men. So for as long as I've known you, you've been, and just to preface this, the first time I met them, Rishabh showed me his drawings of of superheroes, and I was like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
fucking love these guys.
That's true.
So that's kind of your intro was the cartoon, but then
Originally.
together
But
comics.
to get really deep into it, yeah, we didn't like love them as much until actually I think it was specifically a TikTok from a podcast called Cerebro.
Yeah, not to like show another podcast on your
That's
podcast.
okay. I talk about how this get made all the time.
There's a podcast called Cerebro, which is like every episode they do a really deep dive into a character. They're like 4, 5, 7 hours long.
Oh my god.
That's
And I mean, a lot of it is just like bullshitting, like between him and the guest, but like you get to just know the entire history of a character. And I think that helped us fill a lot of the gaps.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we've read at this point 5 years worth of the comics, but the characters that I love, I know like their like back history now too.
Yeah.
And we're just starting to kind of fill in
Fill in
those
the gaps.
gaps.
Yeah.
Like read like Claremont and Morrison.
I
and
love
that kind
this.
of stuff.
It's so cute because we don't do anything like this.
What do you mean?
We watch movies like they're
We
reading
have
together.
interest.
No, we have story time together where Bailey does all the voices of.
That's true because like
Oh my
Richard
God.
I'm
gets-
such a slow reader, so she like.
he gets mad at me if I read ahead, so I have to read out loud. So
Like
then he-
like
No
who?
way.
Like
It
who?
doesn't help that I can't read.
Wait,
I'm
wait,
illiterate.
what? I'm like, he's also one of the smartest people I know. So, what you actually do this story time with voices?
we just started doing this recently.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love
who,
that.
Who do you do?
I mean, like, I just do, like, a high camp, like, anime villainess voice for, like,
For,
the
like-
majority.
That's
Like,
most
like
of them,
Emma or,
yeah.
like, Mystique or
Well,
whatever.
do you feel comfortable giving
Not,
examples?
actually not at all.
That's private time. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
Well, Rishabh will do his Nightcrawler voice.
It's a Nightcrawler.
Yeah.
Ooh.
All I can do is cut Wagner. That's it. That's all I can do.
You want me to try read part of the synopsis?
Yeah, go for it. You do probably a better job than I did.
Convinced that the mutants pose a threat to humanity, Dr. Bolivar Trask develops the Sentinels, enormous robotic weapons that can detect a mutant gene and zero in on that person. In the 21st century, the Sentinels have evolved into a highly efficient killing machine.
See, that's
That's
great,
impressive.
and we would use that if
Snaps.
Nightcrawler was in this movie. The problem is the reason I don't know if I mentioned this or if you even remember it, but in the X3 episode, the reason he didn't come back, he was gonna have a small role in X3. They were just like, it's not worth the time. But the makeup, and they used
my
it as
God.
small.
When we were watching this movie, there was multiple times where I was like, no one wanted to be in that damn makeup chair. Like, Hank was like, oh, I got, like, a different medicine.
Yeah,
I'm not
yeah,
blue
yeah,
all the
yeah,
time
yeah,
anymore.
yeah.
Isn't that
We'll
great?
get-
Yeah.
we'll get into that.
Oh yeah, I have notes on that.
So this is a little bit of your background. So well versed. Hickman can sometimes be a lot to handle, but clearly you guys are fans. Hickman and me have a weird history, mainly Secret Wars. I would be interested to how I would read it now. But when it was coming out and it was delayed, I was like, this is fucking worst. But I'll probably reread it before the movie comes out. Anyway, so we've talked about your history a little bit. What is your favorite X-Men character? I know Rishabh's, and I'm gonna let you speak to say it yourself, but
Yeah, so first and foremost, I'm on this podcast to set the record straight, to stop the slander that your previous guests have had against my husband, Magneto.
what? Who has said spoken out against Magneto?
Brian Marvel had the audacity to call him a villain, and he was like, "Oh, he's like such a good villain because like he thinks he's right." And I was like, "No, I'm wearing the shirt.
I was gonna say he's
Say
wearing
it
the
out
shirt.
loud.
Well-
Magneto was right. He's not a villain."
To be fair, in the context of the previously recorded universe, in X-Men 1, he tries to turn everybody into a mutant. So, like, kind of villain, but in the terms of comics and the X-Men cartoon.
No, he's
very much a more complex character that has multiple sides to him, and it's not just
and
driven.
No, his original conception, he was more villainous. I think Chris Claremont did a lot of work to add depth and layers to him, but like ended up turning him into, I think, a very heroic figure. Now, writers like to dip him back into villainy from time to time, but to me, he's...
Well, and to your point, in an episode that's not released yet, Marvel has kind of walked that villain side back a little
I'll
bit.
subscribe again.
Rishabh is putting his brass knuckles
Got
back in
him.
his pocket.
We got him, guys. We got him. He's back. No, his whole agenda is that he was in a camp and he will never be in a camp again, and he will not allow the mutants to be
Never
prosecuted.
again. Oh.
I just have. That's what I. There's so much history.
Well,
Real
Audra, you've
history.
seen the movies. You've watched every movie with me, except for Audra's the biggest Hugh Jackman fan.
The biggest.
And loves Wolverine, but has not watched Origins or the Wolverine.
All I hear is they're not good. So why am I watching them?
The Wolverine's
Because
good.
he's on the screen most of the time.
Is he shirtless most of the time?
And
Probably.
the Wolverine,
In the Wolverine,
yes.
Yeah?
Yes. That's
Okay.
the most shredded
And his
he got.
hair is the best in X-Men Origins.
You think?
Oh.
You like it in
not
here?
from a Wolverine
No,
comic book accuracy,
Right.
but like in a...
Just a
It
good,
does
like,
look good.
He's good to look at. Yeah.
I
right.
think it's the best in the Wolverine. More short, and I just like the look a lot. I can't explain it. Also, I brought it up in my solo episode of the Wolverine, and we'll get to you. I still need to get to you,
we
Bailey.
can skip Wolverine for now.
No, go ahead.
No, but so in the Wolverine, it opens with the bombing of Japan, and his whole skin burns, but then everything grows back. His hair.
His hair grows back in the same style.
I said, can he not get a haircut then? Like, it was a solo episode, and I was arguing with myself.
Oh, that's
so,
funny. I never thought about that.
Yeah.
It just goes
I noticed
back
that too as
perfectly.
soon as... yeah.
All right, same brainwave. Okay, so Magneto, great character, and done very well in the original trilogy as well as this sequel trilogy. Fassbender does an incredible job. Bailey, what about you? Who is your favorite X-Men character? I know
So-
you have a handful.
Yeah, I should have gone first because I don't feel quite as strongly as Rishabh does. Like, I think one of the great things about the X-Men is that it's like an ensemble book. So there's like so many good characters. But I support women's wrongs. So some of my favorites are like Emma Frost or Mystique. Particularly Mystique. Not in these movies so much, but in the comics, she is just an unrepentant sociopath.
Yeah, she's
And
crazy.
she's so high camp and funny. I also really love Ilyana Rasputin, Magic.
Who we'll talk about on the New Mutants episode.
Unfortunately for you, yeah, you
Yeah.
will. But she's a goth baddie. What's not to love?
Love that.
But if you had to pick between the two, someone's like gun to head, who is your favorite one character?
I think probably like who I'm most excited to see in a book is probably like Ilyana. Like I think she has such an interesting backstory. Like she has like kind of like all this trauma and like self-doubt and like self-hatred that she's dealing with, and she's like kind of a person who was taught that she is a bad person and she's trying to fight against that and like be good and like believe in herself. And then while she's doing all of that, she just looks like really hot and cool, and she's like very badass.
She is. played in real life by Anna Taylor-Joy.
Yes, who was
Wait,
great, like
what?
great casting
Visually.
for her.
Wait,
Visually
that's a
exactly
great
what-
casting.
Yeah.
from what
This
I,
was
sounds
before
like.
she got big too.
Oh, wow.
Even though it came out delayed, it was still before she got popular. And her sidekick is who's the dragon?
Lockheed.
Oh, Lockheed.
So that's
Yeah.
Very
one
cool,
that,
too.
like, yeah, Kate Pride, that's her pet, but like
Kitty Pryce.
yeah,
Fuck you. Leave me alone.
but yeah,
Yeah, I think that's like more of a movie thing that Lockheed is. I mean, they're
Well,
all
no,
like
they're
together a lot.
Both
So
of them
in,
have, like,
like in one of our games, Marvel United, covered on Gateway Gamers, in the box she comes with Lockheed.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Or he's
they
supposed to be
both have
played.
Lockheed.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Because, again,
Good to
they're-
know. Deep cut. See, like that's a deep cut. It's not just like a Wolverine, but
Hey,
I don't.
hey.
I don't mean that as a
I
shot.
mean, I also like anytime Emma is on the screen, she's on the page.
January Jones is great.
I'm lined up. I'm on my knees.
It's actually surprising too that you. I don't know if you've said this because I haven't asked what your favorite movie is. We'll get back to that. And I don't know if we talked about this on the Fantastic Four episode because it was so long ago. But I did. I think I asked you on that episode who is your favorite X-Men.
Yeah.
Can you just restate that, or if maybe it's changed since then? Who is your favorite, Audra?
Okay, so I mean, like, just by like actor choice, it's Wolverine because I love Hugh Jackman. But I will say, I was so pleasantly surprised by First Class. I think it made me like Magneto a lot more due to
That's
Michael
right.
Fassbender. Really, he to me like made the character. Nothing against old man, you know.
No, Ian McKellen.
Ian McKellen.
Don't say his name.
He's great. I remember his name
It's
is-
Sir Ian McKellen.
That's true. I should. He's a knight, but I loved his take of young Magneto in this
No,
movie.
what Ian McKellen does in the original, somehow Fassbender goes deeper, better.
And
like
also-
First Class. Oh my God, First Class is so good.
I wish I was on the First Class episode because let me tell you, Lucas Till.
You
no
literally
one
watched
tells
the
me
movie?
That Lucas Till is in this movie
I
from the
don't
Hannah
know who
I don't
Montana
this
know who
movie.
man
that
is.
She
Is he
pops up-
Havoc?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. She watched this movie while we were doing the episode.
Yeah.
She's in the other
I
room
did.
watching the movie.
And I was shook. Zoe Kravitz. She's the butterfly
Angel.
lady.
Angel.
Oh,
Yeah.
I didn't even realize that was her.
Other huge names, and I'm like, what's happening?
Small
I-
roles who are all dead in this movie in
Yeah.
a
Yeah,
very
you just see the files that
files.
Mystique
Azazel
through. Yeah.
dead. And then your favorite movie then too has it changed?
Ooh, good question.
By that point we had to watch many.
No, as of right now, from all the ones that I have watched and everything, I really truly think that First Class is my favorite one. I really enjoyed that one.
And you too.
I think it's between this one and First Class. I mean, they just feel like so of a piece with each other to me.
Yeah, you don't like Logan?
Oh, I do like Logan. We just haven't rewatched it
Yeah.
again yet.
So I had that feeling with Deadpool 2 where I hadn't watched it since I left the theater. And I remember thinking, oh, it was good, but not great. And rewatching it, I think it's better than the original Deadpool. I think it's such a better movie.
Yeah.
So I'm excited as well to get to Logan because I'm like, I know I like that movie a lot, but I haven't truly sat down start to finish and watched it. So I'm curious to see where that ranks. So I get that. So what about you?
I think mine. I'm going between. I think like this one. Days of Future Past was fun because you get to see. It's time travel shenanigans. I love. Right. I love.
And I think they were the first to do the bring the old cast back. Because
Yeah.
now that's normal. Jurassic Park, Ghostbusters.
Yeah.
It's
Well, yeah,
kind of
it-
normal.
I mean, this is kind of like one of the first kind of like big franchises where they had that history to go back
Yeah.
on.
And they also they are the first big franchise because they came out before Spider-Man. X-Men 1 came out 2000 or 99.
That's
I forget.
crazy.
2001 maybe. It came out before Spider-Man regardless.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. But I think in retrospect, I probably like First Class a little bit more, but I might like Logan more than First Class.
I
Yeah.
am so excited to rewatch Logan and talk about it with you guys.
Yes,
So,
and I remembered that we were coming back. I was not surprised by
you
that.
wanted New Mutants, but it had already been called.
Yes, which
Yeah.
actually, in retrospect, we should just talk about movies that we like. So maybe it's good that we're not on the New Mutants episode.
Which Bailey, for an audio podcast, they can't see it, but she has her New Mutant nails on.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Please go through.
Well, we
Check
should
the-
really post
the
this on
We'll
Instagram.
post it.
Insta. That's what we
Yeah.
need to
Do you
do.
want to take a picture of your own nails, or do you want me to take a picture of your nails?
We have a picture, but you can
No,
also
No, send me
RP
the picture.
fitting is bad.
Okay.
Don't ask him.
It's-
But yeah,
it is bad.
they're black and yellow, New Mutants colors.
Check-
Little Warlock, Ileana, Rasputin, Soul Sword, and then just the X for the
Sick.
X-Men.
It's sick.
if you want to see this and what we're about to talk about next, make sure you are following the Instagram and the Twitter account. Because as I talked about Rishabh and Bailey being the biggest X-Men fans I know, they're also two of the most creative people I know.
Facts.
And why I said they're the best guests we've had on the show, I'm going to allow them to explain why they are. Because tonight's been an entirely X-Men themed night in the Walsh house. And
From shirts.
Sorry, the previously recorded network recording studio.
Okay.
But we started off with a very lightly themed dinner, followed by... I'm going to let you guys just talk.
Go over the dinner.
So,
Yes.
I mean, dinner was mainly, it was very, again, loosely worded dinner.
Loosely themed. So I went out and I picked up beer. And I picked up Moosehead it's Canadian lager for Wolverine. And I picked up Dab, which is a German beer for Magneto.
Or Nightcrawler.
Or the Nightcrawler, Kurt Wagner.
Pretty good.
Fassbender is like German, but then McKellen's very much English. So that is a whole weird thing too.
Yeah.
That Whatever. Then we had we have a
had
Marvel cookbook that I had it for
3
2 years, 2 or 3 years.
Never ever used
Never
it.
used it. Finally used it tonight, and we made a what, Audra?
We made, I'm going to say it incorrectly. It's Magneto's,
Shakshuka.
yes, what Rishabh just said. So
Shakshuka.
yes.
Yeah, I
But it
would've
was like
butchered that
really easy to
too.
make. I made it because it was the only easy character recipe that I could make, but it was really good.
And because we all stand Magneto.
Facts.
That's true. And also, it worked
He
out
was
perfectly.
right.
It's a vegetarian meal, and Rishabh doesn't eat meat, so it was like it was
perfect.
truly perfect.
So we had that, and then we had the Days of Future pasta. We had pasta.
So there's a great side note for that, real quick. So we were trying to think of meals because Rishabh and Bailey always come really well prepared.
Facts.
And I was like, we could do pasta, and Audra was like, Days of Future pasta, and it just like
My
hit
brain was
her,
moving real slow.
which was just regular pasta, and then we
And
had
then-
Days of Future pizza too.
Yeah,
Pizza.
but then we also had
Pizza.
pizza. And then you had poutine.
And then we had poutine for
that's
Wolverine,
delicious.
So we
and it was
actually-
very good.
yeah.
And then apparently in the comics, Beast loves Twinkies. So we had Twinkies, and they were patriotic, so the cream was blue. So
Oh,
it
my
was very-
stars and garters.
Oh my! And it's just perfect. It is just absolutely perfect. However, when that lightly theming that we thought was good, what Rishabh and Bailey brought to the table was amazing. And I'm going to allow you guys to take the lead.
All right, we gotta try to keep this short
Yeah.
because Rishabh could talk about this fully
4 hours. It could be the whole
45
podcast.
minutes uninterrupted.
And which they will be on the Instagram with a breakdown as well.
Yeah, so
Yes.
make sure you're following because Bailey made some very nice
Beautiful.
illustrations
Yes.
for the drinks.
Beautiful.
RP just killed his.
Yeah.
No, almost. I'm sipping.
All right, so I also reversed engineered it from what we wanted to drink, but so my favorite drink is a penicillin. So it's mostly Scotch. It's got honey ginger. You check the Instagram. It'll have all the breakdown. But we titled this one Resurrection Protocols, in parentheses, courtesy of the Five. I themed it so that all of the members of the Five, which, by the way, for people who aren't up on the Krakoan age,
I house mine. I had like a
Yeah,
little
and you're,
bit
and you're
left.
You're
clicking.
rat-
Gosh,
you're rattling
put
that.
it down. You're making a lot of noise over there.
I was gonna eat the cherry. Sorry. Go ahead.
so the on
We haven't even
Krakoa,
gotten to the movie yet.
Yeah.
I know. On Krakoa, the Five are a group of 5 mutants who have the power to resurrect any mutants they want. So they've been resurrecting all of the dead mutants. And the penicillin has a whole bunch of homeopathic style ingredients in it. So I thought it was a perfect match. And again, each one of the members is kind of represented in the drink a little bit. Bailey likes a martini up with a twist.
This was like the most reverse engineered because you asked what I wanted to drink and I said a martini and we were like, how do we make that fit? And we were like, you know who loves a martini? Probably Emma Frost.
She seems like it's either champagne or a martini
Yes.
for her.
Classy woman.
But ice cold, crystal clear, just
Almost diamond clear.
yeah,
Yes.
cunty. One might say.
Are we allowed to say that?
Probably not.
You're a woman, and you're saying
But it's like
so it's allowed.
There's no better word to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Facts.
yeah, but yeah, no olive juice, no brine, right? It's up with a twist of lemon, right? So we thought that was the cleanest and most Emma Frost.
That's our
drink.
White Queen cocktail.
Yes, yeah. The name is the White Queen. That's what you would order at the Green Lagoon, which is the bar that was in Krakoa. Unfortunately, the week we're recording this, Krakoa is over. It's done.
Spoiler alert.
Oh yeah, sorry. Spoiler alert. For Audra, we have the Krakoa Sunrise, a play on a tequila sunrise. So Krakoa was the living island famously featured in the X-Men annual giant size X-Men #1.
Chris Claremont start.
Yes, Krakoa is the living island. So it is orange juice. It's got tequila. I chose specifically Terramana because I know Audra likes Dwayne Johnson.
That's true.
And also Terramana means magical land, right? And that's what Krakoa is. It's a land that holds all this magic for the mutants.
Literally
See, when he
perfect.
said he's illiterate, is that joke? He's not. He's super smart. So
Those are two different things.
Oh, yeah.
that's also true. That's also true.
And it's got the grenadine, but then I also added a splash of kombucha because kombucha has probiotics. Again, playing on the living land, the living island, right? So the probiotics are living bacteria that are in the drink, helps
I'm a
you for your gut.
I'm a health queen. It's fine.
And then we also had some ice molds of like floral, so I threw a strawberry popsicle in there. So there's some little Krakoan flowers atop hers.
Amazing.
Guys, well, fucking.
Amazing.
This is amazing.
It is.
And then for RP, I think RP likes a Manhattan, so we went with what we were calling. The full name was From the Ashes to Inferno, or just Inferno.
But it was also an ex-Manhattan.
Yes. Ooh, an ex-Manhattan. But it's a smoked Manhattan, specifically with whiskey barrel chips used for the smoke.
And he did the full thing, man. Let me
It
tell
was
you.
smoking.
It
Really
was
good.
delicious.
Named after the famous comic book where Madeline Pryor, our queen,
In X-Men 97, for people who are not familiar, it's when Jean Grey's clone just says, I'm going to be Madeline Pryor. For no apparent reason.
there was a lot more in the comics, but
Yeah.
she raises hell in Manhattan, summons all these demons, and basically trash cans come to life and mailboxes start eating people and whatnot. But it all takes place in Manhattan, so I figured, a smoky Manhattan plays on, the fire in Manhattan.
And I must say, it was delicious. And we have tried everybody's drink, and I think I liked mine the best. I think everybody liked theirs the best, truly. Maybe,
Yeah.
you may have liked Rishabh's the most.
I think I liked Rishabh's the most just because you kind of like invented a cocktail, or you like mixed two cocktails together for
Yeah,
that.
it's a penicillin plus
The
egg
egg
whites.
white, yeah.
So it's almost like a fusion between like a Boston sour, which is a whiskey sour with egg whites, and a Scotch sour.
It was really
And-
good.
Oh, I don't
penicillin.
think I had yours, Audra.
Oh, here.
Can I try
Oh
Pass
yeah,
it
I
around.
didn't try it either.
Pass it around.
I
It's just
can't
a
wait
good
till
old
the
tequila sunrise.
strawberry popsicle. Like, I think it looks full, maybe partially melted
that's
by
delicious.
that point.
Oh, it's amazing. I could have like 5 of those.
Yeah, it's like a sunset now.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Sunset. So please check out the Instagram because it really
Yeah,
you need
and
to
this
see
is what I mean. This
the
is
pictures
this
and
is truly
everything.
amazing. But when you hang out with Rishabh and Bailey, this is what they bring to the
We
table
have too much
all
time.
the time.
And like I said, Bailey did some incredible illustrations.
Yes, and
Yes.
that's why follow the Instagram, because I will be having a dedicated post just for your illustrations, and we'll plug it at the end
Oh
too.
wow.
Oh.
Thanks.
Maybe it's
Rishabh was just. He
I'm
was
telling
coming,
you, it's a business waiting to happen here. It's a business.
Rishabh did so good with the cocktails. I was like, well, I need to draw some attention to myself. So.
Draw some attention.
But we are
Pasta!
but we are here to talk about a movie, I think.
I think
Oh,
so.
yeah.
So that's a little bit of background for you guys. The giant X-Men fans put in the work, put in the dedication, just like Charles does for his students.
Oof.
And
No.
no, I know. We've talked
Like
about
Magneto, Headmaster Magneto does for his students.
it. Yeah. Like Boulevard Trash puts in for the destruction of mutants. Yeah, no, you're right. You're right, because
You
Charles
can't
is
help
an
but respect the hustle.
Charles is an asshole.
Charles is like
Charles.
Charles.
Yeah. Also, speaking of accents, he's British in these movies.
That's what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Right? Why?
I didn't think about it.
At his family estate in
Yeah.
Westchester.
And so when they rebooted it, it was yes, you're
With
Xavier.
James McAvoy. Yes, yeah.
So I've always read him as British because Patrick Stewart's British.
Yeah.
So, but then I was like doing research. I was like, oh, do I buy a British beer? And they're like, well, he's not British. He grew up on the Westchester estate.
He's not British,
Yes.
he's just rich. Which in America you might as well
Must be
be.
the same thing.
Facts.
True. But yeah, I guess we're here to talk about a movie, right?
I guess.
We don't have
I'm
to.
having-
At this
I'm
point, we
having a
don't
good
have
Good
to.
old time. No,
Yeah, just cut
Bailey
it.
has notes. Bailey's got
Oh.
notes.
I did
Oh,
write
Rishab's got
notes.
notes.
No, we're
These are
here.
really deranged notes. We'll
We're
get to them.
here. We'll maybe match the runtime of the film
Yeah.
with this episode. So, as we always do, we start with the production notes and facts, and please chime in with anything that you guys think is necessary or that you want to comment on it. Feel free, open mic. So this film was released May 23rd, 2014. We just passed the 10-year anniversary of this film, and directed by no, just kidding. Bryan Singer, who's canceled. We've talked about it on the show. We will not be addressing the scandal that actually came out. The scandal first started with the release of this movie. But he came back to direct the next one.
Fuck that guy for real.
Yeah, no, he's a piece of shit. There's a lot of interesting stories about how he's a piece of shit. And he did Bohemian Rhapsody, and they just cut his name.
I love that movie. No.
They cut his name. His name is not on that movie.
They cut it from. Oh
no,
my god.
because that's when all the allegations came out.
Yeesh.
So this was directed by him, written by Jane Goldman, longtime producer of the X-Men franchise, Simon Kinberg, and Matthew Vaughn, who directed First Class. On a budget of $205 million, the largest for an X-Men film, it grossed $746 million with an opening weekend of $90.8 million. And since it came out on Memorial Day weekend, they kind of grade the 4-day weekend, and it came in with $110.6 million. So an additional $20 million on that extra day. Pretty damn good. But still the second largest opening behind X-Men 3, which is pretty baffling. The critical consensus came in at 90% on Rotten Tomatoes, which aggregate score. With the consensus saying X-Men Days of Future Past combines the best elements of the series to produce a satisfying, fast-paced outing that ranks among the franchise's finest installments. And I would completely agree.
Yeah.
We'll get into that as well. So now we're going to head into kind of development and post-production, all that pre-production, fine stuff. So I just want to say, I want to take a moment and before I get into this line, just mourn the X-Men First Class sequel that we never got.
Yeah.
Wait.
So
isn't this the sequel? I'm confused.
It is, but
Like spiritually, like
you're about to find
Second Class.
You're about to find out what Second Class should have been. So the idea for a continuation of the original trilogy was always on the mind of producer Laura Schuler Donner, who has been on board for the beginning. Her assistant was Kevin Feige. So she referenced that there is so many stories to pull from, but that she always wanted to do Days of Future Past, which, if you read the comics, it's only a 2-issue arc during Chris Claremont's run, who is a common name on this entire rewatch series. Basically, his name's attached to every inspiration for all these movies. And that was released in 1981. So following the completion of First Class in 2011, she pitched the idea to director Bryan Singer to come back for what would have been X4, and that would lead into X5, which does not happen. But they took the idea and a treatment of the story to Fox, and Fox loved it. And this was originally considered X-Men 4, and it was greenlit immediately. So the film was
First Class was that this? You're talking about First Class, or you're talking about this movie?
I'm talking about this movie.
Okay.
So they wanted to. The idea originally stemmed, from the success of First Class, that we can do this story now.
Yeah.
Which is funnily mentioned by Kitty Pryde when she says, "You'll look the same since you don't age," which is just like a fun, like on the nose comment that the actors are different.
Yeah.
So the film was originally intended to follow the sequel to First Class. So this would have been the third film in that series, but also the fourth of the original X-Men franchise, which makes no sense because they still never explain how Xavier's alive. Because
No, at the end, remember, Moira McTaggart is in some hospital, and there's
at the end of what?
At the end of X3, the final stand.
So,
So
that's right.
Earlier in the movie, Charles Xavier is doing a hypothetical, let's talk about ethics class, and by this I mean, I'm going to preach to you what I think is ethical because I can get away with anything I want.
Yeah.
And he says, is it ethical for someone with a mind to occupy the body of someone who is in,
like comatose.
like,
Which, by the way, the answer is no.
No, the answer is no.
That's absolutely
But
no.
here's the thing about Charles Xavier. If there's anyone to be morally gray, it's him.
It's
he
him.
can rationalize anything he wants.
That's true.
He sacrifices the X-Men, where Magneto will never.
Yeah.
I forgot that end credit scene.
Earlier in the movie, he's telling his students about like this hypothetical situation, and then at the very, very end credit scene, there's
right.
a hospital
He's
of
hooked up.
the
Yep.
case study he's looking at, and he says something about to Moira, and she goes, Charles?
Yep, I forgot. So when we did, that's so funny, and that is so bad on my part, because when we watched X-Men 3, I only thought the end credit scene was Magneto moving the piece.
Yeah,
You didn't watch it then?
No, there's a scene where he's hooked up, which
It's a different body.
yeah, so he shouldn't look like him.
Yeah, unless it's like a clone or whatever.
Which
but...
who
Yeah,
fucking
like
cares?
I mean, I think multiple times in the comics, he's just kind of like bundled up his consciousness and lived inside someone else's brain.
Yeah.
Oh,
and
the
then-
Shi'ar made a golem for him or whatever.
Yeah, and then like eventually they get back a body that they're like, that looks like Charles, and then he goes back
he hops
inside.
inside.
I actually forgot about that, so that solves that problem because they show up at the end of the Wolverine to set up this movie. So this was originally intended to be the trilogy conclusion. However, Fox scrapped the second First Class film and shoehorned this right to the top, which is it's sad. So with this becoming the next film, Matthew Vaughn was going to return to produce and write, but Bryan Singer direct. And this was something that the fans, the studio, and the director himself wanted to do because he kind of left X3 for Superman Returns, which is a very whatever film. So they both Matthew Vaughn and Bryan Singer contributed key ideas to the film, such as the Kennedy assassination.
Oh, we have notes about
I
that.
do have really quick. I wrote in my notes all caps. I forgot Eric killed JFK, and then later I'm like, oh wait,
By
He
accident.
did it.
yeah, he just failed to save him.
Yeah. Because that happened, and me and Audra were like, what? And I was like, I knew, obviously.
I
knew.
knew.
Bro, what
and I
was
was so
crazier
excited.
that he was a mutant. That's what's even
Oh, they
crazier.
love-
No, that's insane.
So, in case we don't get to it later, they love doing that. They love being like,
They don't do it as much anymore because of like sliding time scale stuff. They
Yeah.
don't. They try not to reference like real life events.
yeah.
But I love that. That's
they're
why.
like-
But it's so funny
Okay,
when they
it
do,
is.
and they
Like
used to
Gene
do it in
Wilder
the '80s all the time.
or-
Gene Wilder.
not Gene Wilder, Oscar Wilde. Oscar Wilde, they're like, that's a mutant.
Oh yeah. Recently in the comics, they were like, Jesus Christ, he was a mutant.
Now that makes sense.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Exodus is like this
Take that
super
to
religious.
take that to your fucking church.
Yeah.
He's
Jesus
like
Christ
from
was
the
a mutant.
Crusades era, and he's like, you know, the first mutant, or not the first mutant, but he's like, you know, Jesus was mutant.
Which that like I love alternative history. So like to take a little twist. So anytime a film or a book does that, I always love it. So when they did that, I was like, yeah, that's fucking cool.
Yeah, oh yeah.
It makes sense because people are like, out from the grassy knoll.
But
how's
what's
he
his
shot?
what's his mutant power? You
That's
know?
what they didn't explain. He
That's
just said
what
he
I
is.
wanna know.
It's like Magneto had just had a hunch. Like he wasn't sure. He's like,
Yeah, how did he
was
know?
a mutant.
Maybe he had the little thing from Trusk. Maybe he was doing
well,
little.
the reason would have
Maybe he knew
been
him personally.
a good reason would have been if Charles had told him and used Cerebro.
That's what you would
Oh,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
But then he needed to be like, because he was just like, he was a mutant. And Charles is immediately like, I'm so sorry. like it was.
I didn't know.
I didn't give a shit about when JFK was assassinated
like
before.
that. Like other than just having the Pentagon, which is in the comic books. But I don't think he's in the Pentagon in the comics because I didn't read the second issue. But
Yeah, I'll have to say, like, we started Days of Future Past.
the three of us.
Yes, we were like, particularly Rishabh and I were like rushing to read it. And the first 2 issues, like the first 100 pages of this book, have nothing to do with the
No,
movie.
they do
So
not.
I read all of that, and then I read about
fighting
10
the
pages.
Wendigo.
Yeah,
That's
I
what I
saw
was
them all
scrolling
go
through.
into like Dante's Hell,
Yeah.
which was fun. But
That's
it's not
fun,
in the
but
movie.
Well, it starts the book starts off with because if they put it in a trade, it's like 5 issues. They got to make it worth the money. They can't just put the 2 issues out. But it starts off with Kitty Pryde getting to the X mansion, and she gives like a history of what's going on. But yeah, so Singer wanted the film to take place around the Vietnam War or the Civil Rights Movement. Just pick or choose one of the, I guess, defining points of U.S. history. And he wanted Wolverine to return to headline. That was Bryan Singer. So Singer wanted to assure fans that the past wouldn't be erased, which it is at the conclusion.
Kinda.
Because Jean is alive.
Well,
Cyclops is alive.
so it
And
goes-
basically, it's like we're going to continue my timeline.
yeah, I guess like they go far enough in the future that like when Jean dies, she can come back whenever she wants. Basically,
Yeah.
I don't know that like Scott would be like harder to explain.
It's like literally. I mean, all X-Men come back from the dead.
Sure.
But
All
every
comic book
character.
characters.
That's
Yeah.
true.
But Jean specifically, like
She has like a
the
built-in
one
power
defining
set.
She's come.
characteristic of the Phoenix, which is by the way on Bailey's shirt.
Yes. We all
Phoenix
have
has
X-Men
literally
shirts on.
Phoenix has literally come back from the dead.
A
Like
million
that's the one
times.
thing.
And that's the one thing that the movies love to do, and I think it just needs to be left alone. It's not done. I don't think they can do it well. Two is about
they
as
haven't
close.
done it great
Yeah.
yet.
But the way that I like to view this movie is that when this ends, X-Men 1, 2, and 3, even though this is a continuation because the Wolverine's a continuation, this is its own thing. They're just using those actors because all it does is it clears the past for them to go and do whatever they want at the end of the movie, which we see in Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix. Like, it's like the events of X-Men 1, 2, and 3 just haven't happened yet, and everything that happened before that affects those movies hasn't happened.
Well, it's kind of like Madame Web.
Madame Web.
Yeah,
Madame
it's like when we
Web.
go back in time, we don't have to worry about continuity.
This is back-to-back episodes where Madame Web has been referenced.
Her web connects us all.
Her does. It does.
Web connects us all.
It needs to be in the culture zeitgeist. It just does.
You don't have to like the movie, but don't deny its impact.
Yeah, that's true. So, unlike Madame Web setting up clear rules for anything, Singer set up clear time travel guidelines and even met with James Cameron to discuss
Not JC.
string theory, time travel, and the multiverse.
What does string theory have to do with this?
I don't know.
But doesn't
if
it sound
anybody
smart?
would know, it would
That's
be
true.
you.
Like, are they talking about unified string theory? I don't know what that is.
Here's the thing: they could have really gotten into like the quantum physics of like everything or whatever. I don't think that comes through in the movie. It's a fun
No.
time travel movie.
Yeah, no, it's string theory. I have no idea. So this is what I was getting ready to say about with we're going to more in the First Class sequel. So a key development revealed years later in 2019, Vaughn revealed that Days of Future Past, as I said, was originally supposed to be the third installment, but the studio decided otherwise, which contributed to his decision to leave the project. Speaking with ComingSoon.net, he said that one of the reasons I didn't continue because they didn't listen to me. Which is very clear in all of these movies and all these back histories. Fox has just fucked everything up. But my plan was First Class, then a second film was new, young Wolverine in the 70s to continue with those characters, my version of the X-Men. So you'd really get to know them all well, and my finale was going to be Days of Future Past. That was going to be my number 3, where you bring them all back, and because what's bigger than bringing in McKellen and Michael, I don't know who Michael is.
Michael
Fassbender?
Fassbender.
Yeah. But you would think it would be Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart.
And he says McKellen and Michael and Stewart and James, which
Okay,
he
yes.
used his last name to their first name, which it's confusing, and bringing them all together. He said, when I finished Days of Future Past script with it ready to go, I looked at it and said, I really think it would be fun to cast Tom Hardy or someone as the
Not
young
Tom
Wolverine
Hardy.
and then bring it all together at the end. Fox read Days of Future Past and went, oh, this is too good, we're doing it now. He then went to say that Hollywood doesn't understand pacing and that executives are driving 100 miles per hour and just kind of going after the cash, especially Fox.
No, I mean the magnitude of this and the getting everyone together. This does feel like a third installment
Yeah,
type
good
of thing. Like it's a
point.
grand finale, but now the trilogy gets to be First Class, Days of Future Past, and then Apocalypse.
Everyone's
Follow it
favorite.
with a banger.
Which-
End on a high note.
Apocalypse may be the only movie my dad has fallen asleep during because I see all these movies with
So
him.
it's pretty bad.
Oscar Isaac's in it though,
Yeah,
Oh.
but he's got hella face paint on the whole time.
and Olivia Munn.
Oh, because I like music because at the end of the end credits in this movie, it's supposed to be him, but it's a woman.
But it's
And
not
Saban
him.
Noor.
But
And
it's
Saban.
not him. It was
No.
not
It-
him.
No,
It's like
that's
a
like
young-
It was
that's a young-
teasing.
it's like a teenage.
Okay.
Which they also just did in the cartoon actually.
They go back in time and you get
Yeah.
to see him.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes,
but
where
the-
it ends.
He's
the
like a very,
Apocalypse
it's like a
cheek
young
thing.
Apocalypse.
Oh,
so.
interesting.
Yeah, which is
young in quotes.
Well, I
'cause,
didn't-
like
I never realized that Apocalypse was like just a guy. I thought he was like, I don't know.
like Thanos.
Yeah, like
He's-
where like cuz in the comics he's like this weird big bulky like gray dude. And then you see him young and he's just like a
He's
guy.
just a suit. He's just a suit, and he's blue. Which it just makes me mourn because the character development and the storytelling in First Class is so good that I would have loved to seen another movie before this one, and then Apocalypse. Maybe if Apocalypse happened after, I would have loved that because what they do with the characters, like the way that they get so deep, not for everybody, but for Charles and Magneto, and I think even Raven to a degree, is so well done in First Class. And I know, but I talked about the mistreating of the women in that film. because a lot of
It's rough.
It's bad. They're just used as kind of like sex symbols.
Thank you for addressing it with me.
Well, you're welcome.
Right.
You're welcome.
After silencing women.
I
earlier.
did
Yeah,
silence.
I was women earlier, but
Well, I'm just trying
Stay
to give
tuned
you.
till the end.
Yeah,
It's
because
just
RP cut it out.
I did.
He's gonna put it back in.
I'm gonna put it. I have to put it back in now. And this is just a man giving a woman a voice again. You know,
Oh
just like
my
letting
Thank you
Hollywood
so much.
You know, Hollywood. But yeah, no. What could have been from that sequel would have been great. But this is still a great sequel. But you can feel that lack of character development, even though like you know these characters, but like you start. There's a lot of catch up in this movie between the two, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? Like this, when we left, Magneto had just paralyzed Charles, and
Yeah, and then you see him and you have to kind of like figure out what's going on.
yeah, like a
Yeah.
great end credit scene for a second film would have been the JFK thing, like that, and then like so then you start
him as a
three,
mutant.
and him as a mutant, or as not a mutant. I don't know, but yeah, we'll get into some of that later. And then one of the big changes from the comic books is in the comics, Kitty.
Katie Price.
Well, it's
Right.
confusing because she starts out as Kitty, but in the Days of Future Past timeline, in the future, she goes by Kate Pride.
Yes.
And now in the Krakoan
Because
era,
she's like an adult.
Ooh, right.
in the early Krakoan era, she started going by Captain Kate Pride,
That's too much.
and then now she's
she
like
had a cool
Shadow
ship.
Cat with
Okay.
a K.
Oh, she had a ship. You didn't tell me she had a ship.
Oh no, she was like
She's
a,
the captain of the
she was like
ship.
a pirate captain,
Okay.
captain of the Marauders.
That's pretty cool.
They reclaim the name. It's
So the biggest change between the comics and the movie is that in the comics, Kitty Pryde goes back in time, or in the movie, Wolverine does, and they make it make sense. But because in the movie, there's like your brain can reheal.
yeah,
That
but
part
where
makes
did
sense.
where did Kitty get the powers to send someone back in time?
That's new. Because what I mean is this isn't
She had a second mutation.
This isn't the
Oh.
continuation of the Singer trilogy. This is what I mean. Like, why I like to view this as just the actors coming back, not technically the character canon, because it's all she's changed. She's completely changed. Like you could say maybe her mutation evolved,
But she literally just
Yeah.
like I can do like a couple weeks, not years, and then she just does it.
and he's just
I'm
like,
oh,
and yeah,
Well,
Xavier's just like you have to, and she's like,
Got it.
I
Yeah,
Well, I think it's
literally.
because like her like sending them back in time. It has no like basis in the like she never does that in the comics or anything.
No.
Like in the comic, it's Rachel
yes.
who like
It was
her,
like a chrono skimmer.
yeah like time travel is like her whole.
Is she a
vibe.
mutant or is she part? Because
Yeah,
she's dating Franklin Richards.
Yeah, which is kind of odd because she's a lesbian, but like you know, that's
the
we didn't
80s
know that at the time. We didn't know
At
that
the
at time.
'80s, it was hush hush.
Yeah, Chris Claremont loved to put that stuff in.
love that.
That's
But
why he's the
I
greatest
lie.
X-Men writer.
he gets the X-Men. I mean, he defined the X-Men for like 16 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's Ouroboros. He's defining the X-Men, but then he gets them more than anyone else. But
Yep. But the biggest reason for the change, obviously, for her not having those powers, these new favorite powers, is that she's 25 years old in this movie. So she would be negative 20, like when this movie was supposed to. So they were like, all right, we got to switch it up. Obviously, and then Wolverine is the protagonist of the X-Men franchise. So they're like, we got to do it. One of the funny things that I thought was that Stan Lee was supposed to cameo in this movie. Could you take a guess why he did not?
no.
What? Because he didn't want to be in the future part, and it didn't.
No.
He didn't want to be in. I don't
Did
know.
you not do?
He went to a fan expo instead.
that's,
in Montreal where they filmed this movie. He was supposed to. He loves his cab. I think
Like
he might
they
not
had
have,
him like booked out, and he was like, "I'm not gonna make it."
He's just like no. He's just like I'm going
That's
to the fan
weird.
expo instead because he
'cause
loves
he
these.
cares about the fans.
more than a fan.
He is more than a fan. My hypothesis is that he didn't like Bryan Singer. That's my hypothesis.
Fair.
King.
Because
Yeah.
because he loved his cameos. Kevin Feige said, talk about like this, and that. And he said, but the cameos. Stanley would always talk about the cameos. And then the new addition to the cast is Peter Dinklage as Boulevard Trask, which Trask was in X3
I was gonna say
as a
yes.
different actor, which I mean, this is why I don't consider this a continuation of that. I just don't.
Maybe it was a different Trask. Maybe it was a different Trask.
Maybe-
the
maybe.
Trask family. It's
Cousins.
a large.
Yeah, maybe it's his
Family.
like brother or something. Omar Sy as Bishop, Evan Peters as Quicksilver, Josh Hellman as the third version of Stryker, Fan Bingbing as Blink, Aiden Canto as Sunspot, who Audra knew, and Bamboo Stewart as Warp. No,
the
you
one
knew
that- the
Bamboo.
one with
You knew
Boo
Warpath.
Boo was a wolf in Twilight and is in the Descendants. Big,
wait,
know.
who's
big
he
fan.
in Descendants?
One of
Is he
them.
Jafar's like son or something?
That sounds right. Yeah, he's
big Descendants fan.
and he's a
over here.
great dancer too.
You
New one
would
coming
think.
out.
Yeah.
You would think that I would be. I've never seen
You
them.
would. Hey,
They're
that
really
first-
dumb but really good.
That first
There's
movie
a new one
is-
coming out. Now's the best time to get in.
It's true.
You gotta watch those. You gotta watch Zombies.
Zombies also really
All right,
good.
we're here to talk about X-Men.
This
we
isn't
haven't
a
even-
Zombies podcast.
But zombies,
Yeah, yeah,
much
yeah.
like X-Men, love tackling geopolitical scenarios. Now they're
Yeah,
not
they're-
well equipped to
No,
do it.
they're like, we're gonna make a kids movie about segregation.
segregation. Yeah.
I love that.
Makes
I love
sense.
that for them. X-Men related.
It's all
X-Men
under the Disney
topical.
family. Disney.
So that's kind of all I've got to add. There's a couple more things.
Oh, that's
about-
all. That was a lot.
Damn.
Thank you for listening to previously recorded. So for the marketing, we should talk about marketing. The one odd thing about this marketing is that when I went and saw The Amazing Spider-Man 2, there was an end credit scene, and it was the scene where Mystique saves the X-Men from the camp. And I was like, what the fuck is happening? Because it's Sony and it's Fox. Apparently, and they just re-released The Amazing Spider-Man 2 in theaters, and they still left the end credit scene in with the re-release. They just didn't remove it.
I've never seen an end credit scene that's just part of the next movie.
I've only
Like-
seen it once.
Well, no, they do that.
Ant-Man.
Well, I feel like usually they'll bring out a character to
So,
like tease part of the movie.
Ant-Man's second end credit scene was when they had Winter Soldier captured in Civil War.
Okay.
And Falcon goes, "I know a guy." Like that was the one of the few ones where it's an exact scene. This
Yeah.
is like a 3-minute sequence. That's
And it-
in the end credits.
It just gives you like so little information about what's gonna happen in the movie.
and I don't even think it said like
think it's like a
Mystique
cool
will return in Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Like people were like, "What the fuck's going on?"
They're just
Because
like, "Check this shit
This
out."
is a Sony movie, and the reason was because Mark Webb, who directed Amazing Spider-Man 2, had a contract with Fox to do a follow-up to 500 Days of Summer. I don't know if it was a sequel or just another movie, but this was their way out of it.
Oh,
Yeah.
what?
Oh,
Damn.
he broke his contract by.
By just
Wait,
putting Mystique
That's
And
footage.
Sony was
really
okay with
insane. Yeah.
So this was like their shake hands were good.
That's
Thank you for putting this really random, out of context scene
Most
in
people
your end
who went and saw
trailer.
Spider-Man were probably like, "What the fuck is this?"
Yeah.
yeah.
Who is she? Who are they? Who are
And
these people? Where
exactly.
are they?
It's nonsense. It's ludicrous.
That's real weird.
But there was other stuff coming out around the time of Days of Future Past that this was probably peanuts to that.
Oh.
But then the big thing, obviously, post-release is this is the version of the film that we all watched, which was the Road Cut, which is at a 17
right cut.
minutes of additional footage, which it didn't really feel like that.
No, I didn't. I know.
That they cut from the storyline. They cut Rogue completely from it because they felt that it was an unneeded side plot that kind of just prolonged the movie. But it actually helps the movie and helps some of the plot points make sense and helps the middle slowness kind of go along. I truly think. But that's the definitive version that I prefer to watch. And that's kind of all the back notes and history and everything that I have. Is there anything before we get into the discussion of the actual film that you guys would like to add?
I don't think so. I mean, we did actually zero research into that.
I love that.
I loved hearing all the backstory. That's kind of. I knew you were going to do
That's
that.
what I
so
do.
was like-
That's what I do. Great. So normally this isn't a normal rewatch where we break down scene by scene by scene. We kind of go through and talk about what we like, what we didn't like, and kind of just key highlights. What still works? When was the last time that you guys had sat down and watched this? Not the Road Cup, but just in general, from start to finish.
A couple years at least.
For me, I think it might have been in theaters. I don't know if I watched this. I think I had watched First Class, like more recently, but I don't think I had seen this like since we had seen it in theaters.
Yeah, I think it's been years for me.
Yeah.
I
And it
might
was-
have watched it at some point, but
It's been interesting rewatching these because I saw them all for the first time before I really started reading X-Men.
yeah.
So it's been like, I guess, good and bad. Because I feel like when you like read all the comics, you bring like so much baggage.
Yeah.
Like the characterization of Mystique in these movies is so different from the comics. But then when we were watching Evan Peters' Quicksilver scenes, I was like, these are so great. But I think I can love them because I have no idea what Quicksilver is like in the comics. This might be like totally wrong.
Yeah.
But I don't care because it's like good for the movie.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
think like Mystique works in the movie. She just works in like a different way than I would probably prefer for her to be seen.
I think for me, like, I think neither of us are one of those comic book fans that are like, oh, what if it's not like a shot for shot remake of the comic book, it's trash, right? Like, I think we're okay with some adaptations. I think sometimes you have to modernize things. You have to adapt it for the medium, right?
General audiences.
And like the medium is different, so the story has to be different, right? Like
You're telling it in like kind of a shortened format almost because you have so much time in comics to like drag stuff out.
Right.
And that's what the MCU always does. The MCU always takes inspiration and kind of does their own thing. So I've grown to accept. I'm not particular, even with like my favorite books that get made into movies and stuff. I'm like, it's an interpretation.
Yeah, but all that said, I think there are some things that were like, oh, I wish this was closer to the comics. Like, I think Mystique is one where she's so fun in the comics, and in this, quite frankly, I think she's
really better in the original trilogy because she's more kind of unhinged.
Yes.
Oh,
so,
when she slides in X2 and she flips them off like with her tongue out, that was like, I was so excited.
I was like, that's Mystique, bitch.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Also done the dirtiest in
because she's here to serve exactly what you are.
Yeah, that's what we said the other
Happy
day.
Pride Month, Chaperone.
That's what we said. She serves.
Yes, cunt. But like that actress, we were talking about this. No disrespect to that actress from the original trilogy.
Rebecca Romaine.
Yes, she has kind of like negative charisma. She has like almost no charisma
Well,
at
when
all.
she goes from Mystique to Karen, and like in X3, she goes from Mystique and then she turns back to human, like no mutant DNA. And she immediately goes and rats. I'm like, she's Karen. She's literally a Karen. But no, I definitely get
But
that.
I think it like works in her favor because like it makes Mystique seem so like detached and almost like inhuman in like a scary way.
Yeah,
because
for sure.
because there's just like nothing for you to like latch onto.
Yeah.
And like Jennifer Lawrence's Mystique is supposed to be a much more kind of like nuanced and like relatable character. But I think they tie her character so much to the men in these films.
Yes.
In a way that like Mystique is like not kind of defined by that in the comics in any way, which is kind of like what I like about her. She's like really only looking out for herself and her wife because she's also a lesbian, maybe bisexual in the comics. You don't see any of that here, but I still think she like works for the story. It's just a different characterization.
Yes, I can understand that because she's driven by the men's plot points and the men's story. She's not really a function of herself.
Yes. She's either kind of chasing after Charles or after her and Charles like have a falling out. She's just like horny for Magneto, which I understand.
Understandable, but
in the original,
girl, stand up.
Like in the original, she's just chaotic energy. Like
yes,
she just kind
which
of
is so
disrupts
fun.
shit.
Yeah.
And she's great in like the shit she does with Wolverine and like fucking with him and stuff.
Yeah.
and again,
definitely.
no research, but I think part of that might
Before
have been...
anybody says anything, they say no research, and then they just say it's the greatest thing ever.
Well, I wonder if part of it is when they originally cast Jennifer Lawrence as Mystique for the reboots, you know, she was an up-and-coming star, and you have the Hunger Games, and now she's like an A-list celebrity.
Yeah.
So now you have her in the movies, and you want her to be a more sympathetic lead than just someone who is unhinged and like chaotic, right? Because now she's like in these movies, she's like a role model or whatever. Like, you know, like they're trying to make her out to be like some, you know, hero or whatever.
Yeah.
And she is, I think, chaotic evil, or
She's more level-headed in this one.
Yes.
maybe chaotic neutral, right? Like she's
Yeah, which isn't to say that she doesn't have like depth in the comics, but I think it's just it's like it's a whole different thing.
No, she has a lot of depth. They do it really well, right? Like the Bring Back My Wife, like, you know, all that stuff. It's very good, but it's just a very different character that I think they were like, Jennifer Lawrence, you know, she's a big star now. We want her to mainline these movies. Yeah. And you can't have a character like that being your main character. Sure. It's just not...
I mean, even in the comic book version of Days of Future Past, like the first issue ends and she's just like, she's leading the part 2 Brotherhood of Mutants. Audra, as this being your first time seeing the X-Men Days of Future Past and the Rogue Cut, which me and you have discussed, is kind of like
means nothing to me,
it means nothing
honest,
to you.
yeah.
What was your initial thoughts of having seen First Class and then kind of coming into this? Do you think it's an improvement? What do you like about this one? And in terms of, would you have rather seen a sequel and then this one, or are you okay with this being the next chapter?
I mean, again, not knowing any of all the you guys know, to me it was a fine sequel. It didn't to me it was like a standalone movie. Like there was no it felt like a relation to the first movie, like to the first class movie. But that's just me. I don't know much about it. So
No,
it didn't
I think that's fair.
yeah, like to me, like it showed the relationship between Charles and Xavier and their, turmoil of back and forth, which is such a big issue for me. Like, God, is he evil? Is he not? Are they friends? Are they not? Are they It's
Friends.
so
They're
well, they're
I'm making
probably
smoochie-
lovers. They're
smoochie
definitely
symbols
fingers.
with my hands.
so it's back and forth. That's my one
They're
qualm.
husbands.
with
That's
them.
kind of like the only through line between these two movies though is
That's the
Charles
only,
and Magneto.
Exactly. Which I think I do like this one like still as much as the first one because those two characters really they really up the ante for like those two characters. Michael Fassbender can do no wrong. He is so good as Magneto. So I mean, I think it was a very good movie. I am not against time travel. I don't get it.
Okay.
I don't like when they do it in Endgame and it erases the past, changes the future, and this one. I'm like, but how can they just? There's so many different little
The
nuances
future is
and
constantly
things.
changing.
I know. So there's issues with that I have, but like that's just like my own personal.
But you like Back to the Future.
Do I?
The musical?
Facts. Yes, I do like that a lot.
The musical's good.
So no, I really from a first time I'm watching it, I was very surprised. I mean, also it was nice. It was a Wolverine movie, and I was like, this is amazing. He was I think very fun. Just always, he always was saying where him recruiting Xavier was a little soft side of him, a little nice, little team camaraderie. He's a very I'm my own little guy, fuck off kind of person.
Yeah, Wolverine is so great as a reluctant team player.
Exactly.
Where he's like, I don't want to be here, but since we're all here, I guess we're fucking doing this. So
and then we all have to do it.
Yeah.
Let's fucking do it. So I like that.
Yeah.
Part.
So one of the funny things about watching this with her was that the scene where the old team shows up, Storm walks out. Storm hasn't been around forever. We've had 2 Wolverine films since. Hugh comes walking out. Audra goes, "Oh shit!" And I'm like, the one that's the main lead of this fucking movie.
But I didn't know he wasn't in First Class, was he?
No.
No.
Yes,
Well, no,
yes, he
he
was.
has the one scene. He has a cameo.
where
Is
they
that when
try
he
to
goes
they
fuck
try
off?
to
tells him
See,
fuck
and
off.
he says fuck off.
And they
so
bring that back in this.
I love that. I love the I just love Hugh. Hugh can do no wrong. It's true. So I was pleasantly surprised by it.
I think you just found it a little slow.
Slow at parts. There were certain things that I think just I also really wasn't a fan of the monsters.
the Sentinels.
Sentinels.
They were
They're-
too intense.
They're creepy in this movie.
I said that they
They're supposed to be, though.
Yeah.
reminded me of 2 things: the Age of Ultron guy,
Ultron.
Ultron. Yeah.
Sorry, yes, him, and also the monsters from Stranger Things with the
What?
The Demogorg?
yes,
Or whatever.
What?
their faces
Oh,
open
oh,
up and they shoot.
Yeah.
The new ones.
Yeah, the
Yes,
future Sentinels.
Future Sentinels.
What are the? Oh
The-
no, not
Yeah.
the old ones, the future ones. Yeah,
Okay, 'cause
They were
I was
really good at killing
alarmed.
everybody, and I was like,
Yes,
there's
that's-
no even match to this.
That's their job.
Well, yeah. So that's true. So yeah.
Did I hype this up for you? Because I just made
Yes.
a couple comments. And this
You
is my
hyped it up,
favorite
being
one.
like, "This is the best movie ever," and I was like,
Okay, I
First
didn't
Class,
do that. I can assure you I did.
I think to me, First Class was better. So I think I was expecting a much bigger thing. I don't know. I think I like again young Magneto and Charles more than
Which a lot of
old.
people do, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is my favorite one. I was surprised revisiting it because I remember loving it. I saw this in the theaters, saw it 2 or 3 times opening weekend. I definitely saw it 3 times in theaters.
That's insane.
And I loved it. I was so excited for it. Owned both copies of the original and the Rome cut. And I didn't remember how little action is in the film. There is very minimal action in
good
the movie.
point.
And I mean, if you look at the X-Men movies, there's not a ton of action in them, kind of in general. But this is so narratively driven. And I think the performances are so good. And the reason why this isn't a 5-star for me is because of Bryan Singer. Because there'll be some amazing sequences, and he'll have perfect example is Charles with the needle, where he's taking this needle, and he finally decides to refute the needle. I'm not going to do it anymore, and he slams it down. And going from a nice close up that's really nicely framed to the slamming of the needle looks like a soap opera shot. I am just there's so many of those scenes, when he's talking to Raven in the airport, there's a lot of bad direction and weird direction. And so that kind of brings it down for me. And also it is a little bit slow in the middle, but I love that Wolverine is in it, but he is not the focal point of the movie. The focal point of the movie, once again, is Charles and Magneto and Raven.
Yeah.
She is, and I think it's done well. I think she has a better character in this movie.
Yes, I much prefer her in this to First Class because it feels like she gets to do a little bit more. I did want to say, like, these movies, kind of First Class and this one, compared to the original trilogy, like, look so much better.
Yep.
Yeah.
They have so much more style, which I think was kind of, even before I was, like, super into the comics, was what drew me to these initially. Like, they have, like, I think a lot of it is kind of, like, the vintagey aspect of it.
Well, there's a grain on First Class for sure, and there's a grain on this one as well. And while watching it, I literally made a note that this is probably the best cinematography in the movie, but then it gets progressively worse as the movie goes on.
But
Like
I'm
the
with you.
scene,
I like the 70s vibe. Like, it was
Yeah,
a fun.
like
it was
the
so
set
fun.
dressing is so great,
Yes,
like the mansion
costumes
and
were
everything.
amazing.
and then they
Yeah.
add the yellow tint. Like when Wolverine first shows up, there's this light
Oh yeah.
yellowish tint, and I'm like, this is beautiful. Like,
Yeah.
this is shot
Yeah, it looks
perfectly.
great.
And then,
And
like,
then
in
he
the
goes
gym.
outside and it goes to shit.
Yeah.
Like, and
Yeah.
it progressively gets worse. And I'm like, how is this possible?
I mean, in
agree.
contrast to that, I think the future parts of this movie look like trash, garbage.
They
They
look
do.
like
They do.
there's no filter, there's no
yes,
lens,
and
it's
you have
just-
like
it
no
is what it
sense
is.
of like space. Like they're in this like temple or whatever.
They're
but
in Japan, China.
I know, but it could be like on the moon. Like you
They
have,
very well, yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Like you have no like concept.
They love
of,
going to the moon.
They do.
The one note I did make was Charles acting was perfection. Like, I just love that scene where he breaks through Wolverine to Patrick Stewart, and that scene is just so fucking good.
Much.
Pain. Yep. I love that. And Hank looks so much better in this movie. He looked like fucking shit in
did.
First
I
Class.
think the
I still prefer the Kelsey Grammer.
Yeah.
Over
Yes,
everything,
Kelsey
I think.
Grammer
So
is
do
the
I.
best.
Yes.
But he looks better here. He looks like how Beast should look. The other one, he looks fucking terrible.
Yeah.
And me and Marvel went back and forth, and he thought it looked good. And I was like, looks terrible in First Class. But yeah, I think they do so much. I think they do so much good. I think that what makes the X-Men movies different from superhero movies is they are character-driven films. They are not slash them up, but just like the comics. Like the comics, sure, they have their action, but they're not. Like, they are character-driven films. And this is what some of Charles's thing kind of story gets old, I think, for me. Like, it's just like, buck up, man. Like, yeah,
No, it's like you're the leader, literally, of the school. Like, save your. It's,
yeah, and it's like the greater good. Like, this shit's gonna happen. Like, buck the
Yeah.
fuck up. Yeah, there's not much about this movie I don't like.
I think they fumble the ending a little bit. I think
Yes.
the whole White House dropping the baseball stadium around.
Uh,
That part, like,
I agree, because it's just like, yeah, mutants are fine. Like, it's just like, okay.
Yeah,
Like, this whole 2.5 hour movie, and we're just gonna be like, yeah, mutants are fine.
Well, I
agree.
think we were talking about this during the movie, just kind of about like the Magneto versus like Charles' philosophy and characterization. Like the inciting incident of this is that they're supposed to go back to stop Mystique from killing Trask because
triggers the.
they use her DNA to make these like new Ultra Sentinels or whatever.
Right.
But I think like if someone like Magneto was looking at that, they would be like, okay, we have to save Mystique. We don't have to stop her.
Right.
We need to stop them from getting her DNA.
Which that is the cardinal rule of Magneto, and he breaks
yes.
it.
Yes.
To protect mutant kind above all. He would
Yes.
never kill her.
Right.
No.
That's just felt like so wildly out of character. And
That's
I think
more of a Charles move, honestly.
yes. And I think it would have been a more interesting kind of like conflict for the two of them where Charles is like, we have to stop Mystique at any cost to save this like
Trask,
bigot
yeah.
who is trying to genocide our people, and Magneto he's like, whatever happens to him that's not relevant, we have to save Mystique because like above all we protect
Absolutely.
our own people, but they don't do that.
And in this movie, and in this day and age, all Mystique would have to do would shift into Boulevard Trask and say, like, I hate insert race here, and he would be canceled, and it would be fine. So, like, this is like what
But
I
this
mean.
is in the 70s.
This isn't the 70s.
He'd
You're
get
right,
more
you're right.
popular.
There's no social.
Richard Nixon was president.
At
Yeah,
first,
that was fun to like.
Oh, the
yeah.
tapes! You remember the tapes?
Yes.
That's the Nixon tapes. It was
When
he was talking
Nixon-
about mutants.
And I was so excited. I've seen this clip on Twitter, Instagram for years and years and years, probably 10 years, of the Quicksilver.
oh,
yeah.
yes.
I have been
Yeah.
waiting to see this like live. It was just as cool as it always is. Like, it might be the best scene. Just for me, like, it is so fun.
No, it's the best scene of the movie.
It is so fun. It is
Next-
like
I think they
Next
tried
to the airplane scene.
They tried to recapture that magic in future
Apocalypse.
films, and it's just
Not as
not
good.
the same.
Like, it's just
the
like-
novelty of it was so good.
So in
Yes.
Apocalypse, he saves everybody from the X Mansion blowing up, and they do the same exact thing.
to what
And
was
it's
the Disco
not
song?
as good.
It's Sweet Dreams.
Oh yes.
Amazing.
what was the song for this one?
If I could change time,
Time in a bottle.
That was
yeah.
it. Like, it
Which
was
I
like
think this was also kind of the progenitor, or like the first time you get like a really on the nose needle drop.
Yeah.
Which is fun in this.
Mm-hmm.
It starts to get old as more and more movies do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like where there's films like Guardians that are built off of their needle drops, where
Yeah.
then other movies just like Deadpool's needle drops are actually I really enjoy Deadpool's needle drops, but
But
that
I
is
was-
the
I
best
was
scene in
really-
that movie. That scene is iconic. It is
It's iconic.
probably
I've seen it for years.
Probably the most iconic X-Men
Oh
Fox
yeah.
franchise
Yeah.
scene.
And I mean, like, we love Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Pietro, you didn't
Yeah.
see
I
that
mean,
movie?
not as him,
not
just
as
in
him,
general.
Just in
Oh,
general.
in general,
Like, Bullet
he-
Train.
Great.
If he did something,
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't
Wait,
claim.
wait,
I don't
He's-
claim him.
He's very hot in
though.
Bullet Train. Yes.
Did he do something?
No,
I don't
No,
know.
no,
I'm
she-
just
she-
saying.
No,
I don't
no.
know.
She's
This
She's
is
very-
very
episode, yeah.
But yes, we all love Aaron Taylor Johnson. But
Or we don't. We don't know.
She's just hesitant to stand any man.
Anyone,
Anybody,
anyone.
right?
who do you stand? Mel.
She can stand fictional characters.
Yeah, I stand a fictional character that they can't like harm someone's real
I
life.
want an actual human being.
Why?
Famous. You can't
What
say
is-
you can't say me or you can't say me or Rishabh.
Adam Driver seems fine, right?
Ooh,
He's
yeah.
married.
Yeah, we like Adam Driver.
He's
Okay.
hot as hell.
Uh,
Stan him.
But wait, but back to Quicksilver.
Yeah, we're not done with Quicksilver.
Like, great, 'cause I have so much more to
Because
say.
this is the highlight of the movie. He looks like shit.
What is his hair?
His-
What is his
Um,
hair?
His hair, his outfit. Also,
I think it kinda works for
music.
him, I don't know.
Music.
Think?
He's listening to music. Wouldn't that move at the same speed that he?
Well,
that
it depends on relativity.
reality
right?
is?
No, so
string theory.
well,
Let him. Let the smart man talk.
I don't know about that, but I think relativity-wise, right, light moves at the same speed, the speed of light in a vacuum, at any reference point.
Right.
So if he is moving that fast, then the light in his iPod or not iPod,
Cassette.
whatever cassette, right?
His Walkman or whatever. Or I guess it would be
The,
exciting.
the electricity in that has to move at light speed, even if he is moving at relativistic speeds.
Okay.
So
So it's fine.
he might experience time dilation and length contraction, but I think we'll just say it works.
Also, like
Yeah.
in movies all the time, there's like diegetic versus like non-diegetic music, which
speak on that.
Wait.
so diegetic means it's in the scene, like a character walks
Oh,
over,
like
they
gotcha.
put a record
hearing
on.
it, yes.
Non-diegetic is like the score or whatever.
Sure.
But a lot of movies will like move from diegetic to non-diegetic.
Yeah.
Where they'll, a character will start a song, but
And
then
then
you'll
an
go into
action
different
scene.
scenes.
Yeah.
So I think that's just an example of this.
Fair.
Yeah.
But I think he looks terrible.
Yeah. No, but what I was saying about Aaron Taylor Johnson, sorry to that man, but like to be Quicksilver in the same year, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we were talking about
I
this
think he
Here.
looks worse than Evan Peters too. I
Yeah,
think he
we were
looks
talking.
does.
I was just going to say that it must be a thing of Quicksilver to just look like shit because he's
No one can
wearing
pull
like
off that
under.
gray hair.
He's
No.
wearing Under Armour, like an Under Armour overtop,
Yeah.
and then Aaron Taylor Johnson's wearing a spray painted silver jacket. Like, what is?
And honestly, like I think unfortunately, like the one character got riddled with bullets, and the other character had the most iconic like
Yeah.
You didn't see that coming?
second only to Flash entering the Speed Force, I will say, for most cheerworthy
Whoa.
moment of all cinema.
Well, I have to say that's not just the greatest moment in cinema or comic book history. That's the greatest moment of my life. It's the Flash entering the Speed Force.
You voted for it, right? Yeah.
I did. No, I
the
voted
one.
for the Johnny Depp Japanese movie that won third place that year.
I didn't even know they released like different, all of the
it was.
ones.
It's two was the portal scene. That was two. That doesn't
I-
compare to the Ash
Like-
Flash enters the Speed Force.
Infinite or
Like from Endgame.
Endgame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, that makes
So it's
They
sense.
did
like
a
whatever
top
like white
5.
men were obsessed with that year.
No, it's bots.
Bots.
Yeah,
Bots.
it is.
Well, but who's running the bots?
White men.
the white
Yes.
men. Yep.
And
And speaking
and
of
Zack
white
Snyder.
men, Quicksilver.
Quicksilver.
Wait.
No. So in the comics, and again, this is a little
Oh.
controversial, right? In the comics, he is of Romani descendant.
Okay.
But there's a lot of like erasure there, right? And I know,
So is he
Wanda
whitewashed?
too. Yes, Wanda and Pietro are often whitewashed. They're often cast by white actors, but in the comics, they're Romani. And I know that's been like a big sticking point with a lot of people.
Right.
So like as much as we love Evan Peters,
At least,
right? Like,
but at least they have an accent in MCU.
Kind of.
I don't know if that's
Kinda. It goes in and
And
out.
I'm fine with the. I can't say I'm fine with the whitewashing, but like I love Elizabeth Olsen as Wanda.
Okay,
So,
you
like,
love the character that they choose. Like
yeah, I'm
like,
not okay with.
You're not okay with the whitewash.
It's a
Canceled.
cultural appropriation.
No, I
or-
think you can
And
say
some of
like
these
someone has
movies,
a
I'm
great
like-
portrayal of something, but like you can kind of say like, yeah, it would have been
And-
nicer to like.
Sure, and I will say that this is important to the X-Men because this is what the X-Men represent.
Yeah.
All the underrepresented groups.
Especially since historically, right? Like, and I know for all the fans out, like the X-Men fans out there, right? Whether they're Magneto's children or not, it's gone back and forth a bunch of times, right? At the end of the day,
Which
they are-
Audra was not okay with.
I was like, get the fuck out of here.
Don't
the
worry,
Maximoffs.
they're not his biological children anymore. But in all ways that matter,
Oh,
they are his kids.
weird too that they didn't show Wanda. They showed Wanda's sister.
But I loved it.
Is
They
that
were like, go
Lorna
bother your...
Dane, like Polaris?
I have no idea
Which
because
is
she was
so
like, your
strange.
sister's upstairs, and they said I'm a princess, and like obviously, Black Widow or Scarlet Witch wears a crown, so I thought
Yeah.
like it was weird.
But they're
It's-
meant to be like twins.
yeah, they're,
And she's so
Right.
much younger. But then like if it was Lorna,
Why is she in pink and not green?
and also like I think
she's-
Lorna is like from a different.
She's
like,
a different mother.
but
Yeah.
also just like why?
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Just why in general?
They could have
Well,
cut
I think
that
there was
from
rights
the Rogue
issues
cut.
with.
They
Like,
include that, but not Rogue. Like
Yeah.
what's happening?
well, I
here?
think there was probably rights issues. Like Wanda, I think was more Avengers than X-Men at the time, so the MCU had a more clear stake. Like
Sure.
they had a more like clear hold on her.
I guess that's fair because a
Well,
lot of her
Avengers
big
in-
points are Avengers
She's
comic allies.
she's almost entirely been Avengers,
Yeah.
right? I think Pietro was like maybe dubious. He's in like a lot of X-Men TV shows.
And they showed up after both these movies came out. They showed up in a long run of the Uncanny Avengers. They were in it, kind of headlining for a while. But yeah, I mean that's a whole weird rights issue as well. But I guess just a fun nod to not see her. But I think the Quicksilver of it all kind of points to the up in the ante that brought to the film. Bryan Singer brought to the film because the opening scene, the action in that scene is better than I think any of the action in any of the X-Men movies. The opening scene with Colossus and Blink and Sunspot and Warpath, like where they're trying to take out the Sentinels, is incredible. It's an incredible opening.
Yeah.
It's just so strange though because like you just don't know who any of these people are.
Which is weird. Which
if
is,
you're a movie,
exactly
moviegoer.
because
I
even
was very confused.
Yeah,
You
you're
know,
like,
honestly, for the longest time, I did not even realize Bishop was saying Sunspot. It wasn't until much later that I realized, oh, he's saying Sunspot.
I didn't even know he said Sunspot.
He says Sunspot or something like, but it's like,
I didn't even know he said that. I had just become familiar with the character because I had played Marvel Snap. I was playing that for a couple months, and Sunspot was in that. I didn't know he was a mutant. And then when he joined X-Men '97, my friend Marvel was like, "That's Sunspot." I was like, "That's Sunspot." So
I do
now
love Sunspot.
I
Like-
became familiar with it. And so I said to Audra, I said, "I think that's Sunspot," and it ended up being Sunspot.
yeah, but also like
Also, every
Sunspot's
time
a
we said
great
Sunspot,
character.
just take a drink.
If you're like a fan of him, you have nothing to enjoy in like this. Like
No, he's bland.
Yeah, you bring all these characters in for these little like interstitial scenes, and you
Yeah.
get like no sense of like who they
Even
really are.
Colossus, who we've seen before, is
Yes.
bland as fuck.
Yeah.
He's better in Deadpool, which we talk about our Deadpool episodes. That's the best version. When was the last time you watched Deadpool 2?
It's been a long time.
yeah.
Okay, when you rewatch it, there's a treat scene. It's about 2 seconds long of Colossus doing burpees. Just take it in. Just take it in.
Oh, I will say, so in my notes, there's multiple times where I just wrote down a character's name and then I put hot after
Yeah.
it. Colossus made the list.
He's hot.
He's hot.
Yeah.
So tall.
As
very hot.
as iron and as not iron, both ways.
He's so
Big
tall,
fan.
and so he's hot. Is that why
Yeah.
Rishabh came in wearing lifts?
You're like a big man.
Yeah, I
true.
get it.
How
I-
tall is Adam Driver?
Yeah, true. He's very
True.
tall. Very tall.
I feel like most of my notes are also just like character hot.
Yeah.
Like when I have
No,
to
you
isolate
also like a
Hugh.
short king though.
Yeah. So I mean,
Like comics Wolverine,
Comics Wolverine is very
Is
hot.
he Short King?
He's
He's
like
like 5'3".
Yeah, in the
Wow.
comics he's very
No
small.
way.
And they cast like 6 something.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Perfect.
Hugh Jackman.
Perfect.
I did write 70s Wolverine hot. I think this is probably when we saw his ass.
Yes. And when we saw his bone claws, and Audra goes, "What the fuck?" And again,
Oh, I didn't like that at all.
I said
I
again,
was scarred.
or X-Men Origins. She goes, "Maybe I should watch that." I said, "No, you shouldn't."
So then, see, I'm not convinced, but the bone claws, I'm not a fan of. Oof.
So there's a lot about what we liked about this movie. I truly love this movie. I think this is the best that the X-Men get, maybe until Logan. I have to rewatch Logan. But what I didn't remember was how he is the main character, but he's not in Wolverine. You think of this movie and I think of Wolverine, but he's really,
He's the
not.
conduit.
Yeah,
Like,
he's just used as a plot device where comes in and does the get your shit together line and then goes back to letting the other people take control. And I think we need to talk about some of the things that we don't like, which I talked about Bryan Singer's direction and kind of ruining a couple scenes. One more scene that I want to talk about real quick, just mention it. I'm going to go into detail. But the airplane scene between Magneto and Xavier is amazing. It is so
okay.
Oh, I
good.
wrote that down because
I
that
thought you were
is.
going to say you didn't like it. I was gonna
No,
be like,
that scene's amazing.
Where were
I
you,
forgot to mention that.
Charles?
Yeah, where
Yes.
were you? And he metaphorically bitch slaps him and puts him in his place because Magneto was right.
Yeah, I'm pointing to the shirt.
says. But the crushing of the airplane and Wolverine being in the back, like, oh God, like he's perfect in this movie.
Yeah.
Like he's so good. But that scene is truly beautiful and just so. When people think of comic book movies, this isn't what they think of, and this is what they should think of. Because at the heart of every well-made comic book movie, there is a heartbeat. There is a character-on-character development. And I had to have a conversation when, larger media started recognizing, like films like Black Panther, that comic book movies are more than just popcorn films. There's a heartbeat to them with these characters. Take away their powers, and these characters are still incredibly relatable and emotionally vulnerable. And this is what the heart of the X-Men is about these two and what's going on here.
Yeah, and I think that's, talking about stuff we didn't like, right? Like, I think they did some stuff well, like that airplane scene I liked, but I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but I think it would have been a better conflict if they knew what was going to happen in the future and they decided Charles wanted to save Trask and Magneto was like, oh, the issue that I'm hearing from Wolverine is that Mystique killed Trask, so to save the future, I'll just kill him first, so she doesn't have a chance, right?
Which you would think he would do.
Yeah, and that makes more sense for Magneto. It makes more sense for the conflict because Charles is wrong, but he's very much an assimilationist. He's like, why can't we coexist, peacefully in a way where I sacrifice my children all the time for the betterment of them?
well, that's why I also wrote down this scene, the two of them arguing in the plane, because I think it's actually a really good highlight of their two different philosophies, where Charles is very kind of, he's on like a high level concept where he has this like big dream for mutants, and it's kind of an ends justify the means thing where he's willing to make these certain sacrifices because he thinks they'll pay off in the future. And Magneto is kind of so tied into the present and these like individual lives. And in that scene, Magneto is just saying the names of all the mutants that died.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's just like something Charles doesn't take into account, but Magneto never forgets.
Which is also like a little nod to like how well these movies are made for people who care about them, is that in the chess piece scenes in the original trilogy, Xavier sacrifices his chess pieces where Magneto doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's like this is the characters. This is why this
Well, I
is
also
why
Playing for the end game.
and this is why Xavier's kind of a scumbag.
Yeah.
It's like if it works out, it's great, but like when it doesn't, it's his own people that suffer for it.
And Magneto would never kill another
yeah.
mutant.
No, Magneto, and the other thing is also Magneto knows where this is going. He's lived it before. People like Trask, right? Like they are a cancer, and you can't give them any tolerance, right? Like you can't tolerate that kind of intolerance because it will just grow. He knows where this is going,
And
but
there's no like there's no way that you can better yourself that those kind of people will ever accept who you are.
And it's why the X-Men are always relevant.
Yeah.
Because even in today's society, it's still fucking relevant.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
I mean, it's crazy. Like the Chris Claremont era, right? Like a lot of these X-Men stories, they're timeless, right? Like you can apply and graft the mutant metaphor, and it works.
Yeah.
Similarly, I actually have in my notes, right? When Trask is presenting to Congress, right, and he's like talking about like how humankind is going extinct. I had a couple points about that. First and foremost, the whole extinction fear that is played up in a lot of these X-Men stories, both in the comics and in the movies and TV show, right? It's silly.
Yeah.
Because really at the end of the day, what it means if humankind goes extinct and Homo superior becomes the dominant species isn't that Homo sapiens are going to get murdered on the street. It just means that Homo sapiens' children's children will be mutants, right? Like the genetically,
which would be fucking awesome. Who would want to be a mutant?
But like it's played up as a fear, so it's an irrational fear. But that's actually what works because like in real life,
yes,
like,
people are always worried about what comes after them,
and it's not really a real fear about preservation and or it's not a real fear about like safety and whatnot. It's preserving your culture and being afraid that your children's children will not look like you.
But specifically, like white supremacist culture.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
No, and that's what I'm saying.
Where
right.
it's like if our children are like mixing races or whatever, like.
Or you can see with the Catholics too. Like it's a very big like Christian Catholic thing as well. Yeah, no, for sure.
So that's why I think it actually does work because when you break it down, right, like extinction for humankind doesn't mean that you die prematurely.
It just means you evolve into
your children's children will no longer look like you, but like that's not. They'll still live full and happy lives.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, so the fear doesn't make sense. But that's what really works for the metaphor.
Yeah,
it's
and
like
also
a dog whistle
it's
for
kind of interesting too. I never thought about it until this exact moment, like literally right now, is that they cast a little person to play Boulevard Trask, who is typically also a scrutinized sect of society where they are persecuted, they are made fun of, they are this, and that. And to have a little person, even though I never thought about it because he's perfect in the role, he's great, create these machines to destroy another sect of individuals is kind of interesting that I never really thought of.
Yeah, I think they sometimes get into that with the comics too, where like just because someone is born mutant doesn't mean that they can't, have prejudices against themselves and like their own community.
For sure.
Hank McCoy, sorry RP.
My boy.
Oh, that's true. I didn't even think about that.
No.
And eating the Twinkies.
Yeah, they get into that with like Hank and Mystique, where it's like
because Hank is like you'll never be beautiful.
right,
Which
yes,
is
As Mystique.
Hank McCoy.
yeah. And she
hates
said, "But I
himself.
don't want to sit in the makeup chair for 5 hours."
and that's why she left the franchise.
Yeah.
Where he was just like, I don't want to do it, so I'm gonna have this bullshit serum
reason.
that I don't
But
have
honestly,
to
like I think Hank McCoy, his character at his base, he plays on like respectability politics. He's
be. Kelsey Grammer's version. I don't think Nicholas Holt's version does this.
I mean, I think across the board they all play on respectability politics. So it's like this idea that if I dress in a suit, if I am lucid and whatnot, they will respect me, right? So you'll hear it a
If
lot.
I enter their government, if I'm like meeting
why
them
he
for
plays
debates,
right.
Yeah,
Meeting them halfway.
No, but
Leave it
like,
in.
yeah, the respectability politics is like very much Hank McCoy. He's like, if I dress in a suit and act like them, they will respect me, and I can affect small changes there. But at the root of it, he also just hates his kind. He hates being a mutant. He doesn't feel comfortable being blue and being marked as different.
He hates him. He does.
He has a lot of
and-
self-hate, which is why I also have a problem with in this movie at the climax for Hank McCoy, his big character moment is he's being hunted by the Sentinel and he's in the car and he jabs himself with the needles to make himself human, read as human. I was like, That's not a character moment for him. He just did what he already wanted to do. He hates being blue.
I mean,
Also,
I
how
feel
did
like-
how did he not overdose? There was like eight vials.
But like that's not like a good moment. Like there was
On
no
a-
conflict there.
On a long enough timeline, that could have been, I think, something he reckoned with, like in the future. That like when it was time for him to like stand up and like fight for his people and for himself, he chose.
He stinks.
hide.
He stinks in these movies. Like I do
Yeah.
not like. I like him a little bit in First Class. I love Kelsey Grammer, and even the split second we get in the Marvels, I like that
Yeah.
version.
Yeah,
I like that version.
I actually like Nicholas Hoult. I think I might just like Nicholas Hoult, which
I
gives
like
me...
Nicholas Hoult too. I don't think he's like necessarily bad in this.
no,
I do
Hank's,
think
Hank's just a pussy. That's just like
No,
what
I
it
think-
is.
I
I
think
think
Kelsey Grammer is just such. It's almost like stunt casting, honestly,
Yeah.
because he was Frasier. It's like
Yeah.
this is a character who is.
And he
Yeah.
kind of
Frasier.
sounds like the cartoon.
Yeah.
No, like Hank McCoy's favorite drink is gonna be a brandy, right? Like he's
Yeah,
gonna drink a brandy out of a little snifter
And a
like-
coffee.
But I think I do like Beast because I think he's like a classy dude, just wants to be smart. And I love that he's always upside down. He's always hanging upside down.
Yeah.
Is that like his like bit? Is that his like thing?
I part of what it's like. This is gonna sound like so Neanderthal to say, but like I love that he is a beast because a lot of time you see these like, especially like Star Wars and stuff. You see these other beastly characters and they talk, blah, 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 but he just talks normal and he's super smart and he's cool. He's a fucking nerd and I love the science aspect and that he just wants what's best for both humans and mutants and like that's why I love him. Like I think and I just think he's so cool. Like I truly do, and I've always liked nerdier characters, but it's something that I've recently and it's like making me like the X-Men are like I'm connecting with the X-Men, and it's just like that's what's so universal about them. I don't think the movies do a good enough job of making them universal, but I think they touch on the touching points that can make them universal.
I think what's like so good about the X-Men comics is like you were talking about it. They're so character and relationship driven where it's like if you read enough of them, it just feels like this is like your family that you're like hanging
Yes.
out with and like all the interactions feel so like natural between all of them. And it's hard to build that up in movies when you only have like so much time.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that is like a key element that they're missing where it's like as character driven as these are compared to like other comic book movies, it feels like they could lean on that even harder.
Yeah.
So I think we kind of touched on the big touch points. Is there anything maybe that we didn't love? I kind of touched on that it's a little bit slow. Is there anything you guys want to add before we kind of start to wrap up? That you want to make this is your entrance in the previously recorded your X-Men universe. You guys have been amazing so far. Is there anything that you feel like you haven't contributed?
Well, so I was gonna say, I think the Halle Berry like casting, right? So I know she's in the original
She's
trilogy.
completely underused. I love Storm. So
Well,
really
Storm is
underused.
one of my favorites. In fact, if I had to choose a number 2, it's Magneto and then probably Storm.
Oh, do you want to say your 5 favorite superheroes?
He was so mad, wasn't he? So
Audra
Really?
asked in the chat before we came on. She was like, "Bailey, who are your 5 favorite superheroes?" I was like, "Oh, not me."
I was
I
like
already
just Bailey.
I was driving home and I was like, Rishabh's mad.
I already knew what your favorite was. You don't have like one favorite. Like, there's like one.
No, it changes a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I really love Storm. I think in the future when we get Storm and
So
everyone
this is
else...
what I was going to add. This is how I close out every episode.
Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. You led right into it. Seeing the X-Men join the MCU, it's going to happen with Deadpool and Wolverine. It maybe already have happened. What do you guys want to see? What is one thing from either that you've seen them done well and continue that, or change heading into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the X-Men?
So I have a theory of how they're going to introduce them.
Or like a desire, like,
Well, I don't even know if it's like what I want to happen, but I think it's kind of maybe what is going to happen, which in the new Deadpool movie, the
which
villain...
is already out by the time this drops.
Cassandra.
wow.
Yeah,
So-
so you can talk full.
We're just
full
guessing.
Listeners,
Could be
you can
right.
tell her if you can scream into your phones.
I mean,
or
I'm sure I'm
whatever.
probably wrong, but
Maybe we'll follow up with a Days of Future Past type episode with like a little. We'll cut this.
Yeah.
We'll go back in
so
time.
right now, scroll back in your feed.
And we'll find an episode that was 3 minutes long
Yes.
and is now an hour and a half.
The villain is Cassandra Nova, who was part of the Genosha like
Massacre.
genocide
Yeah,
of like basically all mutants except for like a very, very small part. And because there's so much like time travel shenanigans from like the trailer and everything, I think they're going to be going back to And I think also actually in Logan, it's implied that something happened, some kind of like event happened that like a lot of the mutants are already dead.
Yes.
So I think they're going to go back to try to like fix that. And in doing so, that will release all of the mutants into the main MCU timeline. And I think that will be like their introduction to them.
Which is fair because we already Captain Marvel or Miss Marvel is technically our first mutant.
Yes, but I think.
I agree. I think they're just going to shoehorn them in.
Captain Marvel's a mutate.
Miss Marvel.
Oh, Miss Marvel. Yeah. Sorry.
I think they have to do something where like they don't have to have all the Fox actors.
No,
Which,
well,
like,
so
I don't think they want to.
So what I read was that they had to wait until a certain point in time when the contract expired, so they didn't have to bring back those actors. But then me and Marvel have also been talking, not the studio, my friend Marvel, have been talking that there was some clause that Bryan Singer gets paid no matter anytime anytime the phrase X-Men is used in a title. So I'd read
They should
that
just call the movies Uncanny.
so
Maybe like
so I had read that the movie was going to be called The Mutants. So
But
we'll
isn't
see.
already
Yeah.
mutants?
No,
It was
but
a
saying
New Mutants.
no, just the title of the movie was
Okay,
called The
yeah.
Mutant, so they didn't have to pay him.
Right.
But I think that might be a good way. We had talked on our last episode that like, wouldn't it be funny at the end of Deadpool and Wolverine that they just jump into a portal and they're at Endgame, and it's like I've been here. The most
So-
Deadpool thing would be I've been here the whole time.
Which
Well,
that's
that's
our
my-
other theory. Yeah.
So before the Deadpool Wolverine trailer dropped, right? My idea, the beginning of the Krakoan era, the Hickman run, right? Charles does this telepathic speech. Yeah, Charles Xavier does a telepathic speech to the whole world, and he's just like, "FYI, guys, while you were asleep, the world changed. Here's the new status quo. This island you didn't know about.
Yeah,
We are now a full nation. You're gonna respect us. Here's my rules." And
it would be so
And
easy
also, like,
to do as like
we've been here the whole time.
I think that's my.
it also could be like as a factor of the snap. Just be
Yeah,
like
yes,
Krakoa,
or even like
I had to
an
mind
omega
wipe you.
level telepath.
Yeah,
Or
I
the
had to
first
mind wipe
mutation.
you for our safety because
Yeah.
y'all were terrible to us.
yeah.
But now we've assembled enough power and we're ready to make our debut. We've been here the whole time.
Yeah.
And then like a fun montage where you just see cuts from the previous movies, and then the X-Men are just there in the
I
background
would
doing
love
stuff
that.
With the new actors,
with the
Yeah,
new
just
actors.
them like running
I would
around.
like
I
that.
would love that.
I would love that. That would be
And that
that's a
feels
very
very Deadpool
Deadpool
too.
thing to do.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, and I was gonna say, and now obviously with the recasting and whatnot, I think there are some important things like Romani representation. I think Magneto. A lot of people have been fan casting Jason Isaacs. As,
To have like a Jewish
I think
actor play him.
they need to
But
have.
also because he's
They all.
so much of his
He's
character
dumb hot.
is.
I think they need to do. I don't mean to cut you off. It's
No.
very his character is based in his upbringing.
He is maybe one of the most prominent Jewish characters at Marvel. Him,
And
the
the Thing.
and
Wait, so sorry, dumb question. Just for the future of the X-Men. So they're recasting everybody.
That's the rumor.
That's
yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like confirmed
Hughes
either way.
Hughes too old to come back, and
Wait,
they've
so
already
Hughes
said
done?
they've already said that Logan is the end of his X-Men
that was
run.
supposed to be. He
but
was
this-
like done forever.
But
after
this takes place before Logan.
that. Yes.
Oh, this Deadpool movie.
They,
does.
wherever they pick him up in the timeline takes place
And
before
also,
Logan.
like with enough money,
I mean,
anything's possible.
Anything
but
is.
Also, Kevin Feige talked him out. He was like, "Please don't come back." He's like, "Logan was perfect,"
I mean, it was.
and he's like, "Don't come back." And he's like, "No, I want to do this." So
I guess also because Sergeant McKellen is so old. Like, you can't bring those two guys back, right?
he looked like a skeleton in Doctor Strange 2. Like he needs to
That's
be
right,
done.
He was.
I think what
Patrick
they're
Stewart.
Patrick Stewart.
Sorry,
Yeah,
yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Ian McKellen's old as fuck too.
Well, they're both old.
What I think needs to happen is if they can do that, or just do what they're doing in Fantastic. Fantastic Four is a period piece movie, and then just bring them from the past to the future,
Yeah.
or in Secret Wars, bring them from another dimension, and start them fresh. Because that's the easiest way to. Because we dealt with that shit with fucking Eternals, where people were like, "Where were you with Thanos?" And it's like, shut the fuck up.
So there is a good chance they will show up in this Deadpool. Like,
I think one.
end
I think one
credits.
character. I think one character.
Yeah.
So I think on the
Patch,
IMDb
we see where Patch is in the movie.
yes.
I think that Patch is the new Wolverine.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, because when Wolverine puts on an eye patch, he's unrecognizable. That's
Yeah.
his.
It's just
disguise.
like Clark
It's
Kent.
Clark Kent with
That's going to be
glasses.
that's going to be a rough transition for whoever that person is,
Yep.
like however good they are.
Yep.
I know like in the IMDb there's a couple like the past actors are credited, but that could be
I think that's like on a,
Elektra's one of them.
yes.
but I think that's like probably on a TV screen
Yeah, like
in the
clips.
TVA. They show a clip
Yeah.
of
and
that
then
movie.
Deadpool's like, "Can you believe how bad this is?"
But that's happened. So before we go, the last thing we do, we're all Letterboxd fans. On a scale of 1 to 5, also plug your Letterboxd. On a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give this movie? Audra, what did you give this on a scale of 1 to 5?
On Letterboxd currently, it's not what I would rate it after this conversation.
What the fuck?
I rated it a 4.5, but I truly do think it's a 4.
Revisionist history.
I know. I think it's a 4. Not saying that the half star makes a huge difference, but just I like First Class much more. And so no, this is not my favorite movie. First Class beats it.
Rishabh?
So across all cinema, and I don't have a letterbox, by the way, so don't bother trying to look me up, okay? If you find my account, that's not me. No, I think across all of cinema, I'd probably give it like a 3.5.
Wow.
My God.
I mean, it's fun, but I don't think this is something that like I'd be like hankering to
Rewatch.
I think
rewatch.
that's fair because I
It's
haven't
not like
rewatched
a
it.
touchstone.
I haven't
Yeah.
rewatched it in quite some time.
No, I mean when I first saw it, before I became a much bigger X-Men fan, I probably would have ranked it higher because like I love time travel shenanigans. The characters are fun. I love like the continuity stuff. But yeah, I think nowadays, knowing what I know now and what they could be, I think probably a 3.5.
And what would you give it?
So I do have a Letterbox,
Yeah, plug.
Bailey Watro on Letterbox. You can follow me. I have one of the top reviews for Fast 10
That's true.
because I saw an early screening thanks to RP and I got in there early. I was looking back in my history and I gave First Class 3.5. And it feels wrong to give this a higher score than that. Even though, as we were talking about it, I did like a lot of it. You know what? I think I'm going to give it a 4 and I'm going to go back and give First Class also 4.
I like that. This is a 4.5 out of 5 for me. I truly love this movie. I love as I've talked about, I love it gets deep. I just love the time travel aspect and combining of the two franchises, like the two actor sets. Like that is what I love. That's why I was pumped. That's why I love Fast 5 because it brings them all together. But I truly love this movie and I truly love you all. Thank you guys for joining me so much. You have been fantastic guests. Can't wait to have you back in 2 movies for Logan. Can't wait to see what you guys do for that.
Up the ante.
Anything to plug before we go?
I have an Instagram. It's bwatro, WATRO. If you're an art director, you can hire me.
Yes. And you also, do you have a Redbubble page?
I don't anymore, actually. I
Okay.
got
You
rid
have
of
an
it
Etsy?
because the I have an Etsy.
You have an Etsy store.
It's all linked through my Instagram.
Okay.
So yeah, the
It-
Redbubble quality is bad. So
Yeah.
I took my stuff off. Of
That's
there.
what I recommend, like different stuff between Redbubble and TeePublic.
Yeah.
Truly an amazing artist, and you'll see when we post her stuff. And she does a lot of fun stuff. But reach out to her. Truly a
yeah. If you
talent.
work at a magazine.
She's been mentioned on the Tonight Show, so
True, also
legitimately
true.
by
Jimmy
Michael
Fallon's
Shannon,
mouth.
Yeah.
It's
out
true.
of Jimmy Fallon's mouth. Rishabh, anything to plug before we go besides your wife's Instagram?
No, I don't have anything to plug. Tune in, follow the Instagram. Right, there's gonna be some cocktail content.
Yeah,
right, you
I'm
know?
telling you guys gotta start a business.
But yeah, buy the stuff, make the cocktails yourself while you listen.
Ooh,
I love
that's
that.
a good. That's
I
a
love
great
that.
idea.
I'm saying this at the end of the episode.
So
Rewind.
We'll post
Yeah,
it.
listen
Maybe
again.
we'll post it. The day it drops, we'll post the links.
Yeah, this will
or
be
you
a
know
cold
what?
open.
You love
Yeah.
to like listen to a podcast about a movie and then go rewatch the movie.
Yeah.
Right.
So make the cocktails for your
Ooh.
rewatch.
Buy your
Yes.
rewatch.
There you go.
Absolutely. Audra, anything to plug?
Always my TikTok, Audie with a body. It's gonna be there.
All right,
the
and
recap of tonight will be on there.
And spelled BADY.
Baudi.
Okay.
Audi with
Body.
the Bowdy.
Audi with the body.
All right, and thank you all for listening. If you like what you heard today, remember to rate, like, and subscribe. Leave a review. It helps a lot. If you loved our guest, let us know. Reach out to us. Email us. Whatever you want to do. And go watch some fucking X-Men. Go buy some comics. And see you next time. Say bye.
Bye.
In a bottle. First thing that I'd like to do is to save every day till eternity passes away, just to spend them with you. If I could make days last forever, if words could make wishes come true, I'd save every day like a treasure, and then again I would spend them with you.
She,
I thought you were shushing me for a second.
No. Where the
He's
fuck?
like, shut the fuck up.
You okay?
RP, cut all that. I'm remembering where I was going. The drinks are
Not
getting to
RP
me.
silencing women.
Cancel.
Women.
Wow.
That'll go in the end
During
credits.
Pride Month is crazy.
Wow.
This is August. This is August.
This is August. It's over.
Forget about it. You had your month.
Whoa. Damn.
RP, put all that in the end credits.
Yeah.
But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you wanna do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with. If I had a box just for wishes and dreams that never come true, the box would be empty except for the memory of how they were answered by you. But there never seems to be enough time to do the things you wanna do once you find them. I've looked around enough to know that you're the one I want to go through time with. But there never seems to be